very well-known and established sports scientist, and someone who's worked literally with top 10 players and Grand Slam champions personally. He's also a player. He's not just a scientist. He plays tennis. And he was the NCAA Division I national champion, him and his partner when he played at Auburn. Not runner-up, not second place, not third place, the actual champion. So, Mark, I'm super glad to have you. I wanted to brag on you because I figured you probably wouldn't mention that. But so you'll have, for sure, an opinion and a view coming from kind of like a high performance thing. But just why don't you say hi, Mark, and tell everybody just your 30,000-foot view about doubles, and then we'll get going.
Thanks, Jorge. Again, this has been fun doing these, and doubles is very near and dear to my heart. Played a lot of singles as well, of course, but probably had the most success playing doubles. First rule in doubles is always pick a good partner. So I played the Junior US Open with Andy Roddick, so he was a decent partner. I got him a year before he had his big serve, though, so we always kid about that. Would have liked to have played with him a year later, but that was one of the better partners I had. So, but doubles is a lot about strategy. It's a lot about understanding the geometry of the court, and that's, I think, what's so exciting about it for me is the best doubles players in the world are the smartest players most of the time. They understand the court, they understand movement, they understand how to give themselves an advantage and also how to take away the advantage of their opponents. So we're going to get into some of that stuff today, which will be a lot of fun.
Cool. Okay, so guys, here's how this is going to go. I'm going to start sharing my screen, show some videos, some strategy stuff. I got a lot of pretty cool stuff I think you'll enjoy. We have some pre-submitted questions that we'll go through, and then near the end of this, we'll actually take some from the chats. That's kind of, and then at the end, Mark and I will show you where we can get some free stuff from us. So right now, Mark, I think I'm just going to go ahead and start by sharing my screen here. I'm assuming you can see that doubles webinar. Okay, so what I want to do in this segment is just basically kind of go through some of the things that have helped me and my players. All right, so one of the things, this doubles laws, this is not unique to me, by the way. I think a lot of coaches use this. But there's a principle in rec doubles that works really, really well, which is the deep person should hit to the deep person and the close person should hit to the close person. So usually, let me just kind of show you a visual of that. So here you have the four players in their doubles positions. This is considered the deep player because he's deep in the court. And this person over here is deep in the court. So the general rule is deep wants to hit to deep, okay? The alternative is, here's the two short people. They're close to the net, so we call them close people. You want to hit close to close. There's only one exception. Let's say this is a volleyer and he's volleying from below net level. Then you don't want to go close to close because you're going to hit up and that guy's going to spike it down your throat. But what I like to do is teach these laws, teach some drills surrounding them, and then we just play. And it's shocking, but I would say that about 80 to 85% of the points in rec doubles, when they're done, and you kind of just reverse engineer and say, okay, what happened? What was good? What was bad? Usually it's one of these that have been violated, okay? The returner hits to the net guy, and that guy picks off the other net guy, boom. And people go, oh, my volley was bad. And I go, well, a lot of this is just decision making. So I thought I would just go to this next slide about doubles job descriptions. And we got the server and the server's partner here. There's a few things I've been kind of teaching our players for quite some time. But what I did is I put in red what I have found, this is just my opinion, that has helped my rec players the most. Okay, so when you're a server, there's a few things you got to do, but the number one thing that I find that helps my rec players is when they can identify the opponent, in this case the returner's weaker side, and not only know about it, but then you can direct your serve there. So the way I like to describe it is if I'm playing 3.5 doubles and my opponent across the net is a 3.5 person, it doesn't mean every single shot he has is 3.5. He might have a 3.8 forehand and a 3.2 backhand, right? So if I can religiously isolate and get it over there, that's important. So that's a good takeaway. When you're the returner's partner, what I found is that you just got to be moving your feet before the service struck. I call that pre-movement. I'll show you a little drill later that works really well. But if I kind of look at this position and some of the bigger mistakes, the more common mistakes, this is what I found is the number one cause. Let's go on the other side. So we are on the returning side. The returner has, obviously a few things to do. But here's, I think, the number one missed opportunity right here. Attacking weak serves with your body and not just simply swinging hard. I see a lot of rec players that play. Their opponent serving has a really, really puppy serve, just a patty cake. The player doesn't know how to do anything about it. They just are incapable of attacking it. They don't really know how. They just take a bigger swing instead of moving in. They don't know where to direct it. And then this last position is a returner's partner. And probably the number one missed opportunity that I see there is when the returner makes a return that is low. Okay, so low at the feet of the opponent, you have to move in and do what I call the secondary poach. Those are probably, at least in my view, Mark, the descriptions are probably almost the number one things that help, because I've been teaching a fair amount. So what do you think about some of that?
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with everything you said. I think, understanding the aspects, as you pointed out there, is, I think, where the big differences is in the different levels of player. A lot of it is execution, we know that, but once execution is somewhat level between pairs, then a lot of it, you see some matches where you're like, man, they're about the same level, but one team just wins so much easier because they have those components. So I definitely agree with you.
Yeah, so I'm going to keep sharing my screen. I'm going to go back to another thing. And this one is, I would say this is, now we're dealing a little bit with mental toughness, but I learned a long time ago. So just a little background about my teaching. I never coached on the pro tour at all, and I wasn't a good enough player to even come close to the pro tour. I was just a good club pro. But I've coached a lot of doubles. I've coached doubles teams in high school. I wasn't a high school coach, but a lot of the teams that come to my club in the junior program, they're doubles specialists, and they play sometimes for multiple years with the same person. I've coached many, many adult league teams, men and women, tons of doubles there. I've coached a college team that's doubles. I played a lot of doubles myself. So what I found is that chemistry, right, is really, really important. But a lot of people, they don't really lift a finger to do anything regarding chemistry. So what I did is I came up with 20 questions, okay? And these questions are things that, some of them are pretty obvious, but you'd be shocked at how many of these don't get discussed. So here's my theory. If I have a doubles team that's going to be regularly playing together, okay, especially if they're playing together a lot, I'm going to make sure that they sit down as a doubles team and talk about these questions. My questions are just conversation starters. So number one is, who's going to play the deuce in the ad? Okay, that's pretty obvious. What would you like me to say after you miss an easy shot? Wow, should I ask that of my opponent or my partner? Yeah, because here's what happens. A lot of the drama that happens with people when it comes to doubles is, well, I don't like playing with Mark because every time I make a mistake, Mark tells me what I did wrong, or you hear something like that. But no one ever sits and talks about it, okay? Because some people, there's different, like this question too here, that can be answered quite differently for everybody. Some people would say, after I miss an easy shot, just come over and give me a high five. I need encouragement. Other people would say, just leave me alone. Don't say anything. I'd rather just be quiet. Other people would say, yeah, well, come over and kind of, tell me what I did wrong. Give me a technical tip. So how do you know what to do without asking your partner? Chances are you never ask, so you do what you think that they want, and you might be having this undercurrent of frustration. So what would you like me to do after you make a double fault? Okay, so I've asked this question of my own partners, and usually when I ask, hey, you double fault, you want me to do anything? Just turn away, you want me to come high five? They go, just come, tell me it's cool, and then go. Don't spend too much. Are we going to use signals or not? And if so, what are they? Who do you think should serve first between us? That's always a little tricky question. It's not just the biggest server. It's the team who should serve first is the guy who holds the most. And sometimes I would serve first, even though my partner had a way bigger serve, because my partner was such a demon at the net. So that was a reason. Do you like a partner that's loud and intense or quiet and reserved? I should know that. Which one of us should be responsible for questioning bad calls? Because here's the deal. Like for me, when I played, I generally didn't like confrontation. So if we got a bad call, it wasn't really comfortable for me to kind of question the guy, maybe challenge him and get a little bit in his face. But one of my partners, they loved that. That was like their their gear, and they were very happy to do it. So we should decide who's going to do that. What's our plan A going to be? Are we going to be attackers? What's plan B and plan C? Most people can say, well, we have a plan A. We're going to stay back and try to get in when the ball's short or whatever. But they rarely talk about B and C. These next questions, I should have numbered them different, but how much time after a loss would you like to wait before we discuss the match? That's one question. What can I do on the court to help you confidence stay high? Who should serve into the sun if it's in a bad spot? Like for me, if I serve in the sun, my eyes water for quite a while. I hate it. And so my partner knew that about me. What kind of warm-up rituals do we want before the court? Are we doing something at all? Are we doing it together? You want to just be alone? You know, that kind of question. Do you like to hear advice and coaching from me while we're playing? No, just encouragement, please. Do you want me to walk to the baseline with you between points? What's the best thing for me to say when you're getting frustrated? Should we always elect to receive when we win the toss? You know, basic questions. So I think some of them, I'll just get your opinion on those. Some of them are pretty obvious, but a lot of them would be things that no one, like when I put my doubles team through that exercise, I usually just give them a sheet of paper and I give them a little assignment. Okay, for the next 15 minutes, Sally and Jennifer, you're over there. I don't even want to influence the thing. So go have this discussion. And almost always they kind of come back and I ask the group when they get back together, all right, who learned something new about your partner? 100% of the hands go up. Oh man, I didn't know. You know, when you play with Jorge, he doesn't want you to always say you're sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It kind of bugs him. Okay, so at the level you played, you know, it has to be even more important. But what are your thoughts about this? This isn't even a technical thing. This is more like a partner relationship thing.
No, it's one of the biggest issues in doubles at all levels, and you see it at the pro level just as much as you see it at the recreational and club level. Is very rare do you see these partnerships last for many years. People get pissed off at each other. They don't like how people talk to them. They may not think their partner's doing the right things at certain points. It may just be a strategy issue that, hey, they're just not a good fit together anymore. So like you said, there's a lot of communication aspects. The biggest thing is you have to understand what makes your partner better and try to help them be better by using, it could be positive reinforcement, it could be advice in the right tone, right way. It could be, like you said, just walking away and not saying anything, because sometimes players can figure it out. They know exactly what they did wrong. You know, many times when we miss a ball, we know ourselves what we did wrong. We don't need someone else telling us, hey, you missed that ball in the net, hit it higher next time. You know, we already saw that we hit the ball in the net. We don't need someone reminding us what we already know. So we have to be careful as well as a partner that we're not unintentionally creating a more hostile or uncomfortable environment for our partner. And we don't mean to. I don't think any doubles player intentionally goes out there with the desire to piss off their partner. But it happens every day at courts and clubs all over the country and the world.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I saw that happened multiple times at my club, I'll just share the story, was sometimes you have a person, well, I'll just give you the example. It was two pretty strong female players. There was about 4 or 5, and they were strong. I'm sorry, they were 4-0s, but they were strong. They were like closer to 4 or 5. And they had played a little bit together. They were a good team. They had good records, good record. But one of the gals always thought the other one was mad at her. Okay, and so she, of course, she wouldn't go to the other she comes to me. I said, well, have you talked to so and so about it? Well, no, not really. Well, why? What makes you think that? Well, she, when I double fault, she just kind of doesn't even acknowledge me. She just goes to the other side. So here's kind of a interesting thing, and I learned a lot as a coach here. So what happens is, let's say I'm working with Sally and she's the one that's kind of quiet, and I got Jennifer. Jennifer is feelings of her. She thinks Sally's mad. Okay. So I say to Sally, I go, Sally, Jennifer just double faulted and she thinks you're mad at her. And Sally's like, well, why? I didn't say a single word. Are you crazy? I didn't. There's no way she could think that. I go, but look at what happens. If you're a normal human being, I'm serving that way, and I double fault, and my partner just goes straight across the net, doesn't even acknowledge me, and then now I'm serving to the ad, and then I double fault again, and that partner just goes right over there. Already, by not saying something, that me, the server, I'm going to think, oh my gosh, they're mad at me. Look, they're giving me the silent treatment. How embarrassing. But the mindset of the other lady might be like, no, I'm not mad. I didn't even say a single word. So you have to, this whole communication thing is so interesting because sometimes being quiet, especially right after an error of your partner, is a problem because they'll assume that they're mad. I think that's just kind of human nature. So if someone were to ask me if I make a mistake or if I make a few mistakes or miss an easy shot, what do I want? Well, I don't want my partner to just totally ignore me, but I don't want instruction either. I don't want to be coached by my colleague, my peer, telling me all these technical things. So for me, just jog over to me, give me a high five. That's okay, Jorge. Let's go. And that's about what I want. But what I've more than on a few occasions, and this isn't a woman thing or a man thing or a junior or an adult. This is all across the board. This communication. If you look at the pros and the teams that stick together, and we're going to talk about this later, the time between points is super important. And I actually have a video to show you. But what are your just thoughts about that communication or lack thereof and how it can be interpreted?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's not what we say, it's how we say it and how our partner interprets it. And we have to realize that because if we don't understand how they like to receive information, doesn't matter what we say, they're going to interpret it however they typically interpret it. So, getting in the mind of your partner is a huge skill, and the best in the world do that better than anyone. So it's one of those aspects that makes a huge difference, and it'll make for a long-term successful partnership if you work on that on a regular basis.
Yeah, I agree. I'm going to actually show something on my screen now, Mark, because it's this, and I've had some pretty good success. So when it comes to between point times, I call it doubles. I call it a traffic pattern. So if you're a coach listening, you've probably heard the phrase "the 16-second cure," made famous by Dr. Jim Lair, sports mental toughness coach, and basically he discovered. He didn't really invent, but he discovered what singles players do between points. And it was all for singles, right? So I decided to start looking at the rituals between points between doubles partners, specifically the ones that get along the most. Okay, and I found that there's 4 distinct things. Think Bryan Brothers here in your head. So number one, right after a point's done, whether it's a great point, a stinky point, a perfect shot, a horrible shot, they find each other visually. They make eye contact. That's number one. Number 2, they make some kind of physical contact. They come together, they fist pump, they elbow touch, they high five, whatever. Okay. 3 is they talk, they whisper to each other. They're strategizing as they walk back into position. And then 4 is they jog into their actual position. So on this next screen here, I have a video where I'm going to see if I can play this for you guys. I'll try to mute it here. So what's going to happen here, I'm just going to go out here to about this far. So what I'm showing here is I'm going to play a point here. That's me. So just kind of watch what happens after the point. I don't care about this point necessarily. Okay, as soon as the point's done, okay, stop. Okay, so number 1, we make eye contact. I see him and I go to him. Number 2, physical contact, something physical. Number 3, I start walking him back to the serve, or if he's returning back here, and we're strategizing. I'm saying, hey, don't serve here. I'm going to do this. Number 4, when I'm all done, is I leave and I jog, not walk, back into position. Okay, so that little 4-part ritual is shockingly common amongst the very best players. And then just to show you kind of like the opposite, I'm going to go here and hear what I try to do. See if I can get it right to about here. So watch what's going to happen here. At about the 2-minute mark, I'm going to show you how not to do this. But imagine, watch this with the eye and tell me if you had a partner ever do this with you or to you. So this is me at the net. After this point, watch what I do. Just pay attention to me at the other side. The point is going, it's done, boom. Now watch, I just walked to the other side, didn't even look at my opponent or my partner, give him a ball, and I go right here. So that's a huge difference between those two things. So I'm at the net, probably gonna play one more point here. So you see the difference, right? I'll go back to that thing because this is so classic, and I see this all the time. The point ends, and the reaction between the two partners, there it was, the points end, there's nothing. They just kind of walk away and go in their separate ways. So let me tell you why I think that could be a problem. If that happens, let's say you're the one that made the mistake, especially, and then you just kind of, there's no connection. This between point connection, I think, is so important. So we actually practice it. We call it a skill, and we practice it in practice. And we say, okay, what are the four things? I'm playing with Mark. As soon as the point's done, regardless of the result, good shot, bad shot, I find Mark. Hey, Mark. Then I run to Mark and I give him elbow, some kind of connection. Then I walk back with him, whether he's serving or returning. I kind of walk back and we talk about the point, and then I release and I go to my position. Very, very common. I think a lot of the best teams do this without thinking, and I think a lot of the right teams is not even on their radar. So your thoughts about that idea, Mark?
Yeah, no, I think it's one of the most important aspects of good teams. And, like you summarized there so well, the best teams do it, and the ones that don't really struggle. And, it's applicable at all levels of the game as well. And I think that's the biggest value, is that it's not something just for the pros. It's something that transfers down at every level of tennis.
Yeah, I agree. So now I have just a couple more slides, and one of the things I want to talk about here before I share my screen is shot selection. So what I'm about to show you now is some doubles point play, and we're going to freeze it. And by the way, if you come to my club or to our academy in the summer, we actually do this kind of training. Usually it's juniors, but it could be adults. We bring them in, we watch actual doubles of really high-level doubles, and then we freeze it mid-shot and then say, what's the right shot from here? So let's do a little bit of that. I think you'll find it fun. So I'm going to share my screen. Welcome to Jorge's Academy. So this is a doubles dance. This is a skill I want you to learn about first. So what we're noticing here is I want you to focus on this net guy and this net guy, okay? Nowadays, when people play doubles at the highest level, it's not necessarily always serve and volley. 20 years ago, I would have been very, really stubborn about it. I would have made all my team serve and volley. It's just something I believed in. But now, the true story, as I evolved as a coach, and I was coaching a D3 group of women that were pretty good. They're about 5.0 level players. They weren't coming in. They were serving and staying back. And initially I was like, well, I can't handle that. But then I realized I was at the US Open and I did a homework assignment. I went in the back 40 and I watched all these women's doubles matches. It was the day that women's doubles began. I watched probably 110 points. I think I counted 110 points. And out of 110 points, one of those points, this is a pro female player making money on the tour. One time out of 110 did the server serve and volley. So I'm like, wow. I mean, how can I as a coach insist my people do it when the best players aren't? But here's the difference. At my club, this guy and this guy, they are moving like crazy. So I call that the doubles dance. It's the dance between the two net guys. So what you're going to see here in this video is I'm going to actually, let's mute it. You'll notice that I'm teaching it by having the baseliners catch the ball. They catch it, and then they catch it. And I think if you slow it down just a teeny bit like this, the two net guys get it. Okay, now you see it's a slow rally. They're not catching anymore, but we'll go to the top view here. You can see they're rallying, but it's slow. But no, the two net guys. This is the number one, to me, difference between, now there he goes. Okay, so now what happened there is he missed the shot, right? So it could be that he says, well, I moved in, Jorge, I did what you said, and I missed the shot. So that's really just bad execution. It's not bad strategy. I'm going to jump out here. And you can see that even though he moved in, let's watch this again. Now they're moving, they're moving. They're kind of hunting. I think that they're looking for the ball. The net guys are. So look at how much movement that is. That to me is probably by far the number one missing thing. Okay, see it close to close. There it is. All right, so the doubles dance, just before we move on past the doubles dance, if you watch pro level doubles, especially on the women's side and somewhat on the men's side, you'll see some people stand back. But those two net guys are unbelievably active. And that's what I think a lot of people don't get. For years, I've been trying to teach that. And I tried to teach it, and I had a little aha moment when I had the person catch the ball and have my net guys move. They catch it, they kind of, okay, I get it, I should be here. And then I feed it, and the other guy catches it. It just slows it down a little bit so they can learn it. So how important is that movement, Mark? And from the sports sciences kind of view, what type of movement is that? Is that sideways shuffling? Is that, just your thoughts about that double stance?
Yeah, no, I mean, working with your partners to have this synchronistic movement pattern is vital, because what you're doing is you're shortening the court where your opponent can hit into. So that's one aspect of it. The second part of it is you're giving yourself the best chance to cover the next ball. And a lot of it isn't just wasted movement. Like sometimes you watch and there's a lot of wasted movement, or you think it's wasted because there's so much. It seems many times to be unnecessary. Players are just moving and never hitting the ball. They're moving and never hitting the ball. They're covering the line and then they're covering the middle and they're shifting. And that's all strategic, because you've got two aspects. One is you're trying to create yourself to have the best chance of crossing and taking a ball at the right height at the right time, to give yourself an advantage. Or two, you're trying to draw your opponent into possibly making an error or hitting into the toughest part of the court from a geometry standpoint. Remember, it's a lot of percentages that go into it, and good doubles players are processing every single time. They're processing how well you can do a certain shot or hit to a certain location. And it's also part of you being able to move in the right spot. So normally when you're moving, you're going to be shuffling a lot of the time. That's the low cost movement way of doing it. The higher cost, physical cost, is when you're actually going to open your hip, turn your hips, and explode. Most of the time, you're not ready to explode because you don't know where the ball is yet. You're shifting your weight, you're positioning your body into a certain area to give yourself the best chance of success.
Yeah, I like it. So now I got a little bit ahead of myself. So this next couple of things we're going to talk about, Mark, is that shot selection, the thing that I've mentioned we do at our club. So to me, it's one of the more beneficial things I can do when coaching someone in doubles. So what's going to happen here is we have a doubles point, right? So just so you know, these guys here playing this doubles point, they're good. They're about 5.0 players. So let me just get here. Let me mute it so you can hear me. All right, and let's just start this video. So what's going to happen is the video is going to go. All right, so right there we stop it. Okay, so see what happened? This guy here has got the shot. The return was deep to close, so that was the first screw up. Now this guy has gone close to close, put Adam here in a tough position. He's in no man's land. His weight is kind of going backwards. And the question is, what's the right shot? You pick the shot. What would you do in this shot? Sorry, I jumped a little bit too quick. So let's go ahead and jump out here. Okay, so you see Adam right here. So would you lob it over here? Would you chip it low over here? Look at these guys. He's cross. So I'm just going to go ahead and think for a second, and then we'll see what Adam does. So Adam goes lob over the net guy. Okay, so just that kind of strategy and talking and hashing things out is super important. I can tell you that a lot of people in this position that Adam was in right here, right there, they're going to try something too aggressive. Okay, Adam knew he was in trouble. He just threw the ball out, tried to buy some time. So that's point one, right? So let's just go to point two. You pick the shot. Different scenario. Let's go ahead and go here. I'll mute this. Okay, here comes the serve from the other side. Okay, so here we go. Adam is going to get another. Look at what he's got. Let's pause it right there. He's low. He's up. Look at the other team. Pretty decent position. His partner's ready, but Adam kind of moved over. He's going to take that, but he's making contact below net level. So imagine right here what you think this 5.0 player is going to do. What's he going to do with that shot? Right, and then we'll let it play. And he decides to go up over that guy. And it's over his head. So it's a great shot, and then they play out the point. All right, so again, if we go back to here in this Adams thing, what I would suggest is a lot of times people right here, they're going to try to hit something offensive. They don't really transition between offense and defense very good. Adam recognizes he's in defense, right? He can't hurt people here. So he's going to do something defensive and lob. And then we're going to look at the last one. I'm sorry, 0.3 right here, okay? You picked the shot. So now we have the other side is serving. Let me get my mute going. And here we go. So here's a point. So that was a scenario. We picked it up. The point started with the other team lobbing. This is Adam. He hits an overhead. Okay. And then right there, we're going to pause. You're Matt. You're this guy over here. You're receiving an overhead. You got Adam in this position coming in. Bob is already closed in, pinched him off. What do you think this guy should do? Should he rip it down the line? Should he rip it between them? Should he rip it at Bob, who's already up here pretty quick? Is there an option to go over Bob over here or his head? So you got a few seconds to think, what would you do? And then I'll show you what this guy does. Here we go. Rips it down the line and does it pretty well. Okay, so the reason I bring these videos up is because I'll stop sharing here. To me, the biggest way you can get better at doubles, sure, it's a little bit about your shots, but the best doubles players are so cerebral. I think to a degree, I always think there's more strategy involved in doubles than there is in singles because there's 4 parts, there's more angles, there's more people. But what do you think about that in shot selection, just in general, Mark?
Yeah, no, I mean, your point about being cerebral is really more important on the doubles court than even the singles court because you have more options that you have to process. You know, you have 4 people on a court, you have multiple angles and directions, you have multiple potential options that you have to be aware of. Single strategy is way easier. Double strategy, there's way more complexity to it because of how many people are on the court, the different things you're trying to do. So the best doubles players, of course, can think through those processes much faster. And it also puts a lot of people in trouble because if you're a beginner or if you haven't played that much or if you haven't studied the game that long, you're not processing the same way a high-level player who's played it for a long time maybe. And you may get yourself in trouble because you hit to the wrong spot at the wrong time. You're not really aware of the geometry differences that doubles results in compared to singles. So that's why learning to be a good doubles player takes some time because there's a whole aspect to it that goes above and beyond what you learned to play singles, for example.
Yeah, I agree totally. I think that's partly one of the reasons I prefer doubles, frankly, because I don't move as good as the singles. One question that people have asked me, it's actually one of the questions here written, which is how can I get better at my movement on the court for doubles? I think a couple of weeks ago in one of our seminars on footwork, I talked about this concept of pre-movement, where in tennis, you don't have to be like a sprinter down the blocks completely still without even twitching. In tennis, you can be moving. So as Mark's getting ready to serve and his going through his motion, I'm creeping up. You see it all the time. So one of the things that I've found, I'm going to show you a drill from my website. So let me just kind of share this thing here. Okay, so what you're seeing on my screen right now is a drill that I set up. So it looks a little weird because we're playing doubles. This is me, the coach. And I got my server, and my server is in his normal position. But then his partner would normally be up here. You see what I put him? I put him positionally on purpose, way out of position, way over here. This is a returner, right? And they'd probably be up on the baseline a little bit, but I make the returner start where they're touching the back fence, so they're way further back. And then look at the net guy, the returner's net guy, who would normally be right on that service line. I have him out of position. So everybody starts out of position except the server. Okay. And then I want you to look at what happens when the server releases the toss. As soon as the server, I'll play this from here. They release the toss, and then boom, everybody runs into
No
position.
problem. Everybody back. Brett gets a
Let
second
me
chance.
mute that. Okay, do it again because he faulted. There goes the toss. Everybody runs into position, and then you play out the point. So that is a little practice thing. I'm going to just unshare. But as far as, I like to come up with drills. That's kind of what my sweet spot is. So when I have people who I see them at the nets, the partner serving, I'm at the net, and they say they're ready, like I'm ready. There's two parts of being ready. There's your upper body and your lower body. So if you just divide yourself at the waist, I think from waist up, it's easy to be ready. I'm ready. I'm visually paid attention. My racket's up. But then if you look at the feet down, like bottom half, they're completely flat-footed. Okay, so they're really not ready. They're only upper body ready. So by doing that little exercise, without a doubt, almost every time I put players through that little drill, when I have them purposely kind of start a position and run, all I'm doing there is just guaranteeing that the pre-move is going to happen. Instead of me saying, hey, Mark, make sure you move, I'm just going to make them move by the starting positions. And after they play that for 5 or 10 minutes, almost 100% of the people, when I ask them, I go, did you play a little better or a little worse? And almost everybody says, well, I played better. I was definitely getting out of the box quickly. So what are some ideas? What do you like that drill? You think it's effective? Any alternatives to that to help people kind of like be anticipating and moving early and quickly?
Yeah, no, I mean, you're starting people 5 steps away from where they should be, like you did in that drill. That was great. Is really important. If you actually watch a lot of the best doubles players, they're going to start at or behind the baseline, service line, and they're going to move in towards the net. They're not going to start right at the net, and that's a great example of why. They really want to get that 2 or 3 step head start so they can split as their weight's going forward and then come down and move so they can really cover the court better. So anything you can do to be moving before you split is going to give you an advantage than just standing flat-footed and waiting for the ball to come to you.
Yeah, I agree. All right, guys, so I've showed enough of my stuff, and it's about 40 minutes in. We'd like to make these about an hour. So what I'd like to do, Mark, is talk a little bit about some of the questions I got here. Folks, now's the time. If you have a question, you can put it in the chat. You'll find the chat near the bottom of your video player. So here's a question. Can doubles only be won from the net? Mark, I'm going to let you talk about that. You played the highest level of doubles of probably anybody here. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, no, I mean, it can be won from anywhere. I mean, you see it, some of the best doubles players in the world don't come to the net very often. So why do we recommend, though, most people try to finish points at the net in doubles? Because it gives you a greater advantage if you volley well. If you don't volley well, there's not a huge advantage coming to the net if you're a much better baseliner. Normally, the reason you want to be closer to the net is it takes time away from your opponent. And that's really where the advantages come, because the less time your opponent has, the more chance they have to make error, to not have as much time to think through what the next shot should be and things like that. So don't feel like you always have to be at the net to win, but understand why coming to the net gives you an advantage and why it's usually recommended. But you've got to know how to move at the net. You've got to also have good execution, meaning that you've got to learn how to volley correctly, because at all levels, your goal is to win as many points as possible. And there's 2 ways you win a point. You do something well, meaning that you hit a winner, you hit a good forcing shot, or your opponent makes an error. And coming to the net can allow you to do both. And it actually gives you a bit of an advantage. It slants the advantage in your favor to make your opponent make errors. We know that from most of the data we see, about 30 to 40% of most points don't even require the doubles player to hit a volley, meaning that a player will miss a return, they'll miss a first shot, they'll miss the ball, so you don't even have to volley. So there's some advantages there coming to the net because it puts extra pressure on your opponent.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's something a lot of people, frankly, don't think about much about. We haven't covered this, but it's a important one, I think. Signals. What are your theories about signals? Is it necessary? Do the pros use them? Do they more? I see two things, frankly. I see some pros using them, and then I see other pros just kind of doing what I was describing. They're kind of talking about it, you know, between points. So there's no signals. But what really happens out there, and what's your thoughts on signals?
Yeah, signals is communication. So every good team communicates. You can communicate with signals, with body language, and or with words. So they're all going to do the same thing. They're trying to give a goal of what the partnership should do that point. So I'm going to serve wide and you're going to cover the line, or I'm going to serve body and you're going to cross, or we're going to play I formation and you're going left and I'm going right. That could be communicated verbally just by talking. That could be done through various signals. You know, signals is no better or worse than communicating verbally. Sometimes it's worse because you have to remember the signals and you have to know what that means. And sometimes you forget in the heat of battle. Even good players sometimes forget or they don't always pay attention. So there's no confirmation always on signals until it happens. Oh, shoot, they misunderstood what I was trying to do there. So the higher levels usually will do a lot more signaling. And that's not always required, but it's something you can have some simple signals. Normally it's as easy as where is the server going to serve and where is the net player going to move. That's the most simple way to break it down. On the return, you can do signals as well. The returning partner is going to signal to the returner, hey, on this serve, I'm going to cross, or I'm going to stay where I am, or I'm going to fake. So there's a lot of different ways to use signals, and they can be very effective because it also puts some indecision in the mind of your opponents. It just gives them a sense of, I don't know what they're going to do. And that alone may bring on some errors. It may only be a few errors a match, but you may get in the mind of your opponents and they may just dump one in the net because they're confused about what you were thinking of doing.
Yeah, I agree. I played against these two brothers that were really good friends of mine and really, really good. They both played at Purdue. They both were number one at Purdue. Fritz and Bro were their names. And they taught me because they at my club that I first worked at, there was clay courts. They lived there. So I'm going to just show you what they did. This would be behind my back, but just so you can see it, this is what they would do. And I used it for a little while, but basically the digits here just told you where the serve was going to go. So this is out wide, this is body, this is T. Okay, that was out wide, body, T. That's one signal. The thumb was poach or not poach. So out wide, not poaching. Out wide, I'm poaching. T, they would have this. And then they went so far, this I never did, but this is how they did it. They won tons of tournaments. They would do this, and okay, the three again, and then the thumb. And if they ever flashed it like this to each other, that was the net guy telling the server, I want you to hit a kick serve here, a slower kick serve. I'm like, whoa, that's pretty darn elaborate. But I thought it was clever. Poach or not was just the thumb. That's the only job of the thumb. Wide, body, T. And then they flash it. I mean, it was pretty good. I used that for about a year, especially when I played with one of the guys. But the way I morphed is I usually just talk now. It was more in my natural wheelhouse. I'd be with Mark and I'd walk back, okay, look, we're going to do this. Why don't you try this? And we just talk, and then I'd release and go do it. So that's a good one. Let's talk about formations. We haven't done that, but there's all kinds of formations. Australian I formation. If you watch college doubles and pro doubles, you see a lot of stuff that doesn't show up at the rec level. I'm not sure. I had an interesting talk with one of my players. He was a gentleman, probably 50 years old. He wanted to play I formation really bad. He wanted me to teach him that. And he says, I see the pros, they get really down like in a squat, like almost like a deep squat. And then he wanted to jump out of that and go left and right. He thought that would be good. And my initial thought was like, if I did that, I couldn't get out of that position quickly enough. And so we tried it. And sure enough, he was very slow getting out of that position to the point where it was any benefit was actually now a disadvantage. So what are some of the formations you see out there, and maybe some that may or may not work for the club level player?
Yeah, you're 100% right. Don't copy the pros on everything they do. You don't move as well as them. You don't execute as well as them. You don't have the knowledge of the court spacing as well. So you can't just mimic what pros do. It's really one of the fallacies out there is to just copy what the pros do. You have to be smart about it. Your example of, hey, it takes you 10 times as long to get up from that low squat position, then the ball's going to be by you by the time you get out of the squat position. So any benefit that you may have had, which there is a lot of benefit in I formation, because it allows you to create indecision in the mind of the returner typically. And that's the point. Or if a returner returns really well cross court, you take away a lot of that cross court return by playing I formation. And they have to then go really, really wide, which is hard, or they take it down the line. So the benefit of doing I formation is great if you know how to use it and if you're fast enough and skilled enough to get out of that position. If you're not, like you said, it's just better to play traditional, or you may even play, Australian formation or something like that, where you're trying to take away a certain shot from your opponent.
Yeah, I agree. I think a lot of one formation that I do think works really, really well and is very underused at the club level is Australian. So when you have people that play doubles, almost every doubles player has a preferred side to return from, right? Well, I can't play with that guy because he has to return from the deuce, and I have to return from the deuce because I'm horrible in the ad, or the other way. So the part of those strong opinions about what makes you good is based on the fact that 9 out of 10 times your return is probably going to be headed cross court. So by just using Australian information and putting the person there, you're basically telling the person that's returning is like, all right, we're taking away your stuff that you're really comfortable with. If you want to go there, my net guy is going to be there. And of course, the net guy has to have a halfway decent volley. But the rest of the time, I just want you to return a totally different. I've personally probably used the Australian formation with more success than any other formation we tried, other than maybe double back, where me and my partner stay back and let the other guys come in. And we're basically saying, okay, our defensive lobs are stronger than your overheads, your weak overheads that you're shanking all the time. And that's a formation. But in that order, Australian formation, I think, really is not used enough in a lot of places. We try to do a group of guys, 3-0 guys, in the next tournament or the next USA League match, they used the Australian, and they were accused of cheating. The other team hadn't even heard about it. We can't do that. They literally thought that was like an illegal move. So, Mark, when it comes to, here's a question about seniors. I'm sure we have several seniors watching. Any just general recommendations for doubles play for seniors?
Big or a big but quite short recession. And in 2019.
Oh, I think I hear someone else, but can't even.
Yeah, so with senior play, there's a few things that you have to really take into account. One is your restricted movement. You know that you're not going to move as well sometimes, depending on who you're playing against. If you're playing other seniors and you move better than your opponents, that's a great advantage, because then you can start hitting certain shots that makes them move. So that's really important to understand. Are you the better mover, or are your opponent's the better mover? And if you've ever seen, the Art of War, Sun Tzu, there's always a strategy in there. If you're stronger than your opponent, then try to defeat them using an appropriate strategy. If they're stronger than you, then you have to sort of back off a little bit. Meaning that in a movement scenario, what you would do is you would use more lobs, you would use more chips, you would play a bit more of a defensive strategy potentially, that doesn't allow them to maximize their movement. The other option is you've got to change the court dynamic. So if they move better than you from the baseline, don't put yourself at the baseline as much, put yourself at the net. So you have to really understand your opponents. And that's not necessarily just being a senior. That's just generally understanding your strengths and your opponent's weaknesses and or strengths, and how you can maximize your chance of winning. But normally you see it more at the senior level, because there could be a significant difference in physical mobility. And that's where a lot of it comes in. So you can use that in different ways. The good thing also about seniors is they've usually played a lot of tennis over their years. They understand the court quite well. They understand their strengths and weaknesses, hopefully. be realistic. If you've never been able to hit a topspin backhand and you're 75, you're probably not going to learn a topspin backhand. You know, be realistic about what you can and can't do. And it's really important to use what you have that day. Arthur Ashe said that best. Use what you have today, basically. Don't try to do more than you can, you know, and that can get you a lot of wins if you understand that.
Yeah, my quick 2 cents when it comes to senior tennis is the doubles players that are senior, we're going to assume, you know, that means you're limited with your mobility. You know what I find? The very best ones, they're demons in no man's land. They actually hang out in no man's land, and they're good there. They don't have to try to worry about there. They're halfway up, so that it's tough to lob them, and it's tough to drop them because they're kind of parked. Now, normally, you know, you would say stay out of no man's land, but some of the best senior players they park themselves there. I'm going to show my screen one more thing because this conversation on formations reminded me of something that I don't think a lot of people think about. So I'm going to give you a real life example of something that happened with me and my daughter. A lot of you know that my daughter played tennis, and you know, as it turned out, she was quite a good doubles player. But when she graduated, she had the doubles wins record at the school, whole college. But here's the other problem that we had. Let's pretend this is my daughter serving. My daughter's forehand, which was over here on this side, was way weaker than her backhand. She actually, her senior year, had like the yips on her forehand, right? So when she lined up traditional and she would serve, and she stayed back half the time, because she lined up traditional here, the ball's coming here. She's hitting a ton of forehands over here in this forehand corner. So one of the things that we did with her, we call this face-to-face, is instead of doing this, we took the doubles partner, we put the doubles partner over here. We took my daughter, had her serve from here. And now this rally, okay, so remember, she has to serve there, but as soon as she served, what'd she do? She ran over here. So now she's renegotiated. She used to be over here in the forehand corner, and just by this simple strategy, she's over here. And because of that, she's getting lots more backhands, like dozens and dozens more backhands during a match than she wouldn't. This is something we call face-to-face. These guys are face-to-face and they're face-to-face. It breaks the pattern. But if you have a position, like, you know, the same thing could work over here. Let's say that my daughter was serving and, you know, her backhand was, you know, she's going to serve to this position. So this guy would go back, this guy would come up, and she's serving there. But her backhand is really, really bad. Well, you don't have to just take backhands all day long. Do some strategy, put this person here, have my daughter serve there. As soon as she serves, she runs over here. And now this line looks like this, right? And she's, just by strategizing in simple formations, now she's getting more forehands because she's in the forehand corner. So that's something that I think a lot of people, it doesn't dawn on them at all. But those are just real simple things. You can do that at the rec level. You don't have to be super high. So guys, we got about 5 or 10 minutes left. I haven't even answered any questions from the chat. So here's your chance. We're not going to be able to answer. We had 400 questions here. We're going to try to answer, and a lot of them are duplicates, obviously. Good question here. What's the best strategy to defend against a team that lobs you to death? What do you think, Mark?
So there's two aspects to that, really. When you're talking about a team that lobs you a lot, don't be so close to the net. That's usually why they're lobbing you a lot, because you're giving them an option to lob you. So start further back. Doesn't mean you have to start on the baseline initially. If you like being at the net and you good volleyer and that's where you think you've got the best chance of winning, start around the service line. Don't get too close to the net. Therefore, when they do lob you, you should have a reasonably easy overhead. So that's step one. Step two would be, well, don't give them balls that are easy to lob off. What does that mean? So if you hit the ball, you know, deep down the middle, it's a little bit harder to lob effectively off that. The other one is go short and low, because if you go short and low, they have to move forward and it's a little bit tougher for them to hit an effective lob. So don't give them the chance to lob off the easiest balls possible. The third option, really, then there's one more, is that you can just play back a bit. So you can both play back, take away the lob completely, and see if that throws them off the rhythm. If it does, then you can start alternating when you come in and when you stay back. So a lot of it has to do with strategy. But again, there's a lot of different ways to play against teams that lob a lot. I always thought it was relatively easy to play against those teams because they didn't have that many options. If that was their main strategy, then you just take that option away from them and they start breaking down normally.
Yeah, one thing I would say about that is, and this is a common thing, right? If I took all the complaints from my club members after a USA League match, this would be the #1 ranked complaint. Oh, this team that it wasn't even tennis; it just lobbed us to death. So I would say, treat every overhead as its own. Like not every overhead is a smash. So I think a lot of people they screw up overheads because they assume, well, it's an overhead, so I should smash the hell out of it, and every overhead should be killed. And they can be yellow, red, or green. Sometimes you just want to get it back. Sometimes you're just in total trouble and you tap it back. So make sure you're not lumping them all in the wrong thing. So this one, Mark, you might be uniquely qualified to do because you are a left-handed player. The question is, when you got a lefty-righty, what's the best thought? Is there a best thought? Forehands in the middle, forehands not in the middle?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I can give you personal experience on this one as well. I'm a lefty, and I grew up playing in Australia on grass courts a lot, and lefties returned on the ad side. That was sort of what you did. So my entire junior career, I returned on the ad side. And then I got to college, and first couple of years I did that as well. And then I played with a player who really struggled, right-handed player, that wanted to take, the forehands, so they wanted to take the forehand down the middle, and they had a really good backhand return. So we flipped, and I honestly returned probably better on the do side than on the ad side. I just never really played it my entire career because that's not what you were supposed to do 25 years ago. And now you're seeing a lot of teams doing it pretty consistently, where you want the two forehands in the middle sometimes because that allows both of them to cross at the net and have the forehand, which gives you a little bit more range, a little bit better position to cross off. The one negative sometimes is the wide serve. Depending if you've got a single-handed backhand or not, a wide serve possibly could get you if you're a lefty and you've got the person serving to the deuce side. And I had a pretty good one-handed backhand return, so it actually didn't hurt me at all. But if you've got some challenges on the single-handed backhand, you may not want to play with your backhand on that wide serve. So there isn't a right or wrong on this. You've seen great pairings that do both. It has a lot to do what the individual skill sets are of the players.
Yeah, I kind of like that. So, Mark, question here is, chip and charge or not? Someone's asking a question about, I'm assuming it's on the second serve, obviously. I don't see that happening a ton anymore, but maybe I'm wrong. What's really happening?
Yeah, at the highest levels, it's tough to do because the kick serves are bouncing so high and the strings and everything that goes on with that. So it's not as easy anymore to chip and charge and drop the ball usually at someone's feet and come in and get a high volley to put away. That used to be a great strategy, especially on grass courts, especially when you could really have the strings, which were different now. Now it's pretty hard to do that. The second serves are so good. They're kicking up so high. Their positioning's good. So you don't see that as much at the highest levels. Also, a lot of the players may not have as much confidence in their first volley. So they'd rather actually hit a full return and then hit a first ground stroke. And they feel like they can do more damage with that strategy than actually going and chipping and charging and then taking a first volley. So a lot of players would prefer to hit a return +1 and that +1 be a ground stroke than that +1 be a volley. So that's one of the reasons you don't see as much of that at the highest levels. I still think, though, at most club levels, it's still a great play because your opponents usually don't serve that well. They're uncomfortable hitting half volleys, most people, and it gives you an option to really change things up as well. So I definitely think it's a good play. You just got to use it appropriately.
Cool. So, Mark, first of all, thanks again. We're over an hour now, so we're going to wrap this up. What we'd like to do at the end here, guys, is just show you where you can get some free stuff from Mark and I. So I'll share my screen, and Mark, if you want to get ready. I also just put this in the chat room, the links. But what I'm going to show you is basically two things. So for me, I have two websites. This one here for players, just right-click on that, it'll open up. This one is 100% free, and there's pro footage on here. There's lessons. That's worth visiting for sure. The other one, if you just go here, this one is for coaches, but this one you got to pay for. But it's got 2,000 drills, and that's the thing. The other thing is Mark and I actually created a little workout video, or not a video, it's a course with about 60 videos. And we have a piece of that course. One of the modules is called the at-home 10-minute workout. It's 10 exercises that Mark himself shows you. You do each exercise for about a minute, and the whole thing takes 10 minutes. So if you want to get that, it's totally free. I put that link in the chat room as well. You can see it right there. Just put your email and it'll do it. But that's just a couple things from me that you can get. And then Mark, I know you have a ton of stuff at the Kovacs Institute and the Academy. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, let me here show a few screens here. So what we're looking at here is our Academy site. This is our sort of online, tennis academy. We have a ton of different resources on different topics. This is just up this week. We usually try to get material up nearly daily, from in the gym workouts to various webinars that we've done. Serve analysis went up, a real brief one of a player. So these are the type of things. We have an Ask the Doc section where people are asking questions and we try to answer them in different ways, in different formats. So it's all searchable. You can kind of see up here at the top. You can look by videos or articles. You can also go to the search bar here and put in different things. Let's say if we wanted to put doubles, you would go in there and you just put in doubles, and you'd get a lot of good information on various topics from that perspective. So it's one of the best resources, I think. I'm biased, but I think out there, just because we've done a good job of compiling a lot of different things. So this is just some things on doubles. So you can kind of see what's, if you get picked on in doubles, anticipation, approaching, the net game, movement. And, there's about probably 30 plus videos right now up there just on the topic of doubles. So that's one. Go to Kovacs Academy. I put the code in the chat section. We're running a yearly special right now. So, if you sign up for the yearly program, you get a really good discount. So that's a great option. Right now, we're just opening up registration for our Tennis Serve Specialist certification program. This is for mainly coaches that want to understand the serve better. So if you go to here, I'll put this link up as well. But this is a unique course. It's a 14-day program, and we go through all these different modules. It's pretty in-depth. It really just focuses on the serve. So as you can see here, this is all the materials. Each day you get new material in your inbox, off-court exercises, infographics from the research about the serve tips, video analysis sessions where we actually walk through how to do good video analysis, give you a checklist, a bunch of different things on data analytics, question and answer sessions, etc. So this is a really impactful resource if that's of interest to you. And then just our Institute page. This has a lot of other resources here. If you go on there, you'll be able to find out more about what we do. We have programs for coaches. We have programs for players as well. So those are just a few resources available for you. So I'll stop sharing my screen and turn it back over to you.
Yeah. First of all, thank you so much for sharing that. I know of a couple guys that went through that certification with you in the past, and they raved about it. So I think it's a coach's thing, but I wouldn't be surprised if you're really into tennis and you really want to take a deep dive and learn more about your own serve, I wouldn't rule it out for players either. So guys, we're an hour and 6 minutes, so we're going to wrap this up. I want to thank Mark again for joining us. Between Mark and I, we've won one national doubles title. Isn't that a funny joke there? And he did it. So thank you again, everybody. We'll let you know if we're going to do another one of these. If you're on this call you'll get a recording of this. We always send it to the people that did it. So thanks again, Mark, and thanks again, everybody, for watching.
Thanks, everyone.